Hello and welcome back to the Open Sorcery. It's Devi, and today we are doing more shadow work prompts. So, as you know, I have been rereading through The Women Who Run with Wolves. And in that, another one comes to the surface because I am doing my own work. I am doing my own internal reflection. I might as well share this with you guys and have you come along with me on the journey. And so in the next story, Bluebeard, this is identifying the internal killer in the psyche. This is identifying the part of you that literally keeps you at status quo or keeps you down or keeps you below. And I've been turning it over and over and over in my mind for several days. And what I came out with it was name it. What is the predator in your mind? Now, if you are just starting on the work, you may have several layers of them. I know my first layer of it, when I first read this story like 5 years ago, was shame. The predator's name was shame. And they do feed each other. It's like this little conglomerate cancerous group that sits in the back of your mind. And they like to just kind of gang up on people. But name it. Reveal its face. It has less power when you know what it is. And in this moment, for me right now, the internal predator, its name is doubt. Its name is doubt. And once you name it, you can actually see the fingerprints that it has everywhere on the internal landscape of your mind. Self-doubt, exterior doubt. It carries with you into relationships, both romantic and platonic, both familial and acquaintance. It doesn't necessarily just stop with one thing. It is all things and it is all encompassing, but you have to name it. You have to identify it. You have to see what it is before you can really attack it or figure out how to defend yourself. Now, a lot of us, unfortunately, have gone through traumas and things that are not pleasant. That, unfortunately, I do believe is almost a fact and instilled facet of being a person, being a human being. But how you deal with it and how you grow from it, that becomes your choice. That becomes part of your power. But in the story of Bluebeard, the girl is obviously naive. She doesn't understand that she has literally lain with the predator. The predator is grooming her, giving her all of these things, lulling her into a sense of comfort and peace. But on the initial meeting of these two, something didn't feel quite right, but she pushed it down and she ignored it and she pushed it away. Oh, everything's just fine. It's not as bad as it seems. Maybe I was just paranoid. Until she's confronted with the truth. And because Clarissa Pinkola Estés does so well with her storytelling. Just go read it. Go read it and start to ask yourself the questions. Because truly, it is powerful. It is really powerful. And I have been driving myself potentially slightly mental doing this work and turning this over and over and over in my head. But something always unsettled me about the story overall. And finally it came to me, it's like, I never named it. I never figured out what this thing was because of everything that was going on in my life. The first time that I read it, it was an exterior identification versus an interior one. And while, yes, if you are in a situation which requires, exterior identification, do so. But when you are able to actually dive into the work of the self, dive into the muck and the dirt and the grotesque of the self and identify it and actually do the work there, that is almost harder. Because you have to recognize that there are instincts of yours that are just busted. They're either busted, they were never there, and you're having to train a muscle that's never been used. It is quite literally atrophied from lack of training, lack of understanding, and just who knew it was there? You don't know what you don't know. So my advice this week, my really big one is name that internal predator. Use an IFS system if that's what you have to do, the internal family system, if you want to really separate it out. But if not, just figure out what it is. Is it shame? Is it doubt? Is it pride? Is it anger? Maybe go through the list of the, quote, 7 deadly sins, unquote, or even the good ones. The name is really not there in my brain at present, but anything out of balance, anything that is used as a cudgel, anything that has light will cast a dark and deep shadow. And the brighter it is, the darker that shadow becomes. So even though we are illuminating part by part, piece by piece, until we actually see us as a whole, until then, the shadows get darker. It does not mean that we are afraid. It means that we have to know what we are going up against, and we have to remain curious in ourselves. So, in that, like I said, when I was able to identify it, I found that the internal predator of mine that is haunting me at present, his name is doubt. What is the name of your predator? What emotion does he pertain to? What source does he come from? Because overall, is the doubt, if we're just going to use mine as an example, is the doubt instilled by a societal expectation? Is it instilled by parentage and how you grew up? Is it instilled by peers? Is it instilled by a internal image of what should be that is heavily skewed, kind of like a magazine cover? I'm sure many of us that are in our 30s, so I'm in my early 30s, remember growing up these stick figure people on covers. But when you looked at real pictures of them, ones that weren't airbrushed or anything, they didn't look anything like that. But for some reason, those airbrushed images just spoke perfection into existence, and that was what we strove for, even though it was always unattainable, even though it was completely imaginary. And so, in the predator's eyes, and what gives the predator strength, is it because what you hold yourself to is something that is genuinely unattainable? Is it something that doesn't matter how hard you tried, no matter how much magic that you did, this would be a 1 in a quadrillion chance for anything? And if that's the case, there is no shame in saying so. Because even though we want, the Delulu to come Trulu, we have to come at it from a grounded point of view as well. Everything does need to be realistic. Magic works within the confines of reality. That's how we function. And so it can definitely snowball in a positive direction where it starts small and then just gathers steam, because one right choice feeds 2 right choices, feeds 3 right choices, and so on and so forth. But don't set yourself up for failure by literally shooting for Pluto in a ridiculously short amount of time. Just because it's a goal does not mean it's realistic. And I know most of us have heard the term, aim for the moon to land amongst the stars. The stars are further out than the moon is, though. So, just saying. But identify the predator. Identify where their power comes from. Where did it come from? Who told you that something was wrong with you? Who told you that your eyes weren't gorgeous? What asshole told you that shit and fed this internal monster? And yes, it will come a point where we have to actually kill the monster. Kill the internal predator. Wrest control from it entirely. But that depends on you. That depends on how you function. That depends on what you need. Some people can just disarm it. Maybe find a useful place for it. For some people, it is so heavy and bad and just impossible to work with that, yes, it has to be completely dismantled. It is not, nothing is worth salvaging. It needs to go back into the dirt and lay there and never get up again. But this one's a harder one because this is incredibly confrontational, especially within the realm of the mind. So drink your water. Give yourself grace. And I hate that term because I always cringe every time I hear it, but here you really, really have to. And if you can bounce these ideas and these thought processes off of somebody, please do so. Please do so, because sometimes hearing it out loud or having somebody kind of bounce back what you said can spark the right questions. And once we spark the right questions, we can take this thing apart. It becomes like Oogie Boogie from The Nightmare Before Christmas. just because it has a bunch of bugs on it does not mean it's powerful. And when you got to the heart of it, it was just one little bug. Very squishable. Not much he could do there, huh? But lots to think about. Give yourself grace. But this has been Devi with the Open Resorcery, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening. Have a good one.